Welcome to Life of Giants. I am one of your hosts, Dean the Genetic Marvel, and with me is Mr.
Kyle Petrillo.
And we are talking about Marcus Aurelius today. So I have two. We're continuing where we stopped. We were going to do it every week, and then I went to Florida, and I forgot this book. So we did not. We did not go do it last week. So we're going to try again this week. Hey, Victoria. So we have two excerpts we're going on. We did from book one, verses 1 to 5. So now we're doing 6 and 7 because they're quite long. So I'm going to read them out. And here, hold on, I have them loaded up. Nope, that's the one. All right. So from Dionytus, not to busy myself about trifling things, and not to give credit to what was said by miracle workers and jugglers about incantations and the driving away of demons and such things, and not to breed quails for fighting, nor to give myself up passionately to such things, and to endure freedom of speech, and to have intimate, and to become intimate with philosophy, and to have been a hearer first of Bacchus, then of Tendasus and Marcinius, and to have written dialogues in my youth, and to have desired a plank bed and skin. Whatever else of the kind belongs to the Grecian discipline. The Greeks, number one. Perfect. Hold on. Hey, what's happening, Angie? And then verse 7 is, from Rusticus I received the impression that my character required improvement and discipline, and from him I learned not to be led astray by sophistic emulation, nor to writing on speculative matters, nor to delivering little hortatory orations, nor to showing myself off as a man who practices such disciplines or does benevolent acts in order to make a display. Shit. I feel called out. That's fine. And to abstain from rhetoric and poetry and fine writing, and nor to walk about in his real father, Annius Verus.
Yeah, you don't read that. That's
I don't know what that is.
That's a footnote, and you have to go to the next page.
Damn it! Hold on.
That's a footnote to a passage you didn't read today. So.
Perfect. Okay. And not to walk about in the house in my outdoor dress, nor to do other things of the kind, and to write my letters with simplicity, like the letter with Rusticus wrote with Sinuisa to my mother, and with respect to those who have offended me by words or done me wrong, to be easily disposed to be pacified and reconciled as soon as they have shown a readiness to be reconciled, and to read carefully, and not to be satisfied with superficial understanding of a book, nor hastily to give my assent to those who talk overmuch. And I am indebted to him for being acquainted with the discourses of Epictetus, which is communicated to me out of his own collection. Wow, that's a lot. Okay.
I think it's kind of hilarious, but
like, I feel personally attacked.
Well, the second part, number 8 or 7,
yeah,
the other second part, is all about like writing simplistic so that people can understand, and then but it's fucking 200 years old or whatever, and nobody can understand what the fuck he's talking about.
Which is hilarious, right? Yeah. The irony is not lost on me, sir.
We're not here for the poetry. We're here for simplicity and teaching people. I even had I have personal experience with that shit too. But
well, I think that the core thing here is like, it's breaking down the idea of missing the forest for the trees, right? A lot of the times we're stuck in a situation where we hear pretty words, and let's be honest, there are a numerous amount of people who are now like, I'm a life coach. You're like, what the hell is that? That's not a thing, right? That's not real. But people are like, oh yeah, I'm super bored. Like, I've always been not hesitant, but like so cautious when someone says, oh, I have a mentor, and I'm like, really? what does that mean? Because that's peculiar, right? Because I'm like, people, you may have someone who mentors you and guides you through a process, but I think we've lost the formality of that relationship in our lives, right? And for the worse, right? Because the fact is, like, there are still apprenticeships and things where you learn and slowly progress, but in turn, we've limited them for things like trades and stuff where it's applicable to everything, right? Because like, if you look at every real job, and I say real job as in anything outside of bureaucracy, you need a mentor to guide you through the process because you're guided by experience you learn over time, right? But then you have people who just kind of talk a lot and they're like, wow, they got promoted like 3 times in a year. You're like, how is that possible? That's not real. That's absolutely ridiculous, right? And that's just because people say the right thing. And Kyle's disappeared. You okay?
Yeah, I had an eye thing, and I figured instead of rubbing my eye on TV, people can just like not see that.
Hey, who knows? Maybe they
Um,
like
I have a crazy amount of insects on my window. Anyways, yeah, no, like there is points of that like mentorship should be. I'm like it used to be parents,
Yeah,
but
well, that's shit. That's
or
true.
like military leaders, I guess, village elders. Um, but I don't know. I don't really have a mentor at this point. I just have Dino to call me out on my shit, and that's pretty much. Otherwise, I'm a self-ruddered ship at this point. But like, I don't know. Like looking around, maybe that's not the best idea. Maybe I should have a mentor.
No, I don't think, like, but that's the thing is, like, I don't I don't think that you necessarily have to have a person that's a mentor, but being a student of a philosophy or perspective, like, we've been talking a lot about Stoic stuff, and this is the basis for Stoicism, was done by Marcus Aurelius and really became popularized, right? Because it was met with quite a bit of scorn throughout history because people were always uh, looking at it as like, well, they have no emotions. No, you feel all those emotions. It's the idea that you don't let those emotions rule you, right? And that's that idea or that perspective. Like, for lack of a better example, like, religion was that throughout history for a lot of people, and then it kind of went nuts. Walkie talkies are neat. I love you. That's a great comment. It's just,
But
I
um,
apologize. By the way, I am sick, so I'm still coughing, but on the mend. So yeah,
no, like yeah, they just started the fuckery, right? Like, hey, you know what else is good? And like, you can't get divorced, but let's murder our wives. Like, yeah, like there's been some like stray, but
well, that's and like, I really attribute that to the idea that people um commit to things without having an understand. Like, right now in time, it's come to light that a woman that's on the pill will choose a different mate than a woman that's not on the pill.
yeah, because
And
not on the bill is based off of genetic code and is actually better for the child. And now we have a bunch of fucking peanut allergy bitches that will die because they eat a Reese's.
well, listen, life without Reese's Pieces.
Not a life.
That's yeah. What's the point?
Uh,
But that's like, realistically, I think about it this way: is that people make decisions in their life constantly without any counsel or understanding or using experience of others, right? Like, so I think about it this way is like, if your parents didn't have a good relationship, and let's be honest, no relationship is perfect, right? But if they didn't have a relationship, you have to work doubly hard to try and figure out what you want in a significant other. Like, you may know what you don't want. That is helpful, but then you're like, okay, but now what do I actually need and want, and all those kind of things, right?
well, yeah, definitely. And this seems I feel attacked. No. They sure as fuck didn't have I didn't want any of them. So it is funny that yeah, they don't well, yeah, I talked to Dino a lot about this actually, about how I never wanted a family growing up because I thought they were all like mine, and to figure out that there are other choices. It's just like, oh, that's a thing, and then I'm like, oh, you mean families aren't complete shit to each other all the time, every member, and just like grow to loathe and hate.
Yeah, like when I hear the idea that siblings don't fight, and I'm like, oh, then you're not siblings. Like that's not like the idea of a sibling not getting into an argument with it, like where it's all like sunshine and lollipops between siblings. I'm like, that's weird to me. Like that's really weird. And I'm like, I'm not saying it's impossible. I just think it makes me uncomfortable. Let's be honest. What do you think is worse, doing, trying something blind, or blindly following someone else? I think both are equally horrible, right? Like,
well, what are we talking about here? We're talking about brisket or fucking a life choice. Like,
yeah, like I feel like there's it's kind of like the idea is that like the rules of being human have been abandoned, right? And I think that's wrong, because like the basic ideas of, hey, like XYZ because those are normal things, like normal statistics, understandings, knowledge, like how to read, like, okay, like a perfect example, the temperature, it's funny because you brought up brisket, but the temperature for all bacteria to die is it's 165 degrees. Okay, now that being said, you don't have to cook a steak to 165. You have to cook it medium rare is about 120. Okay, so that comes with experience. And I'll be honest with you, for the longest time when I was young, I was like, oh, I don't like steak. And then my brother's like, order it medium rare. I'm like, oh, you mean with blood in it? He's like, it's not blood, you idiot. Just try it. And when I tried the first bite, it was like the heavens opened and angels sung. And I was like, this is the greatest thing ever.
Yeah.
You know? But like that's, you don't really realize, right? Because and that's the other thing. I remember in one of the Avengers, Captain America had that little book where he was writing stuff to add to his list of how to bring himself up to date. And he was like, food's a lot better. We used to boil everything, and that's gross. And you're just like, that was what people knew, because they're like, well, you got to kill everything, boil the shit out of it. And you're like, that was the thing. So like, I feel that in any way, shape, or form, like you can't, the idea of following anything blindly is absolutely ridiculous, right? Like that there's no way that you can be helped, because then you're a slave, right? You're just what's the other word? If you lived on a lord's fief, you would be not their slave. There's another word for it.
Chime in on the comments if you know.
It's like somebody who would just like work the fields and stuff like that for their the lord of the area. But
so we used to call those slaves.
No, but it's not slaves. It's there's another word for it. It's because it was the whole idea that, like, remember, the whole idea of owning property is still fairly new. Like, you couldn't own property unless you were a very powerful business person, or you were some sort of royalty or in the court, right? So that's that idea that you were like, because even now there's a cool thing. So if you buy an island, one of the British islands, which there are thousands of them, is you become Duke, I believe, officially. Like that's how that is. And I'm like, man, that'd be awesome. Right?
Oh, you can buy you can buy a small piece of stupid land and become a lord. Like, it doesn't even take.
I do have that. I have my own tartan. Victoria bought it for my birthday a couple of years ago. Because the worst part is she bought it for herself too, so both of her names are on it. I'm like, damn, can't just rule it over her or anything. But that's, yeah. So technically, you could do that. So
you're a lord.
I am technically a lord.
Oh fuck!
Yeah.
Last thing we need is that shit going in your head.
Let's be honest; it can only get worse.
Yeah.
That's definitely. But no, like, have you ever? So I'm like, so looking at stuff, there's a growing perspective where people are like, just assume everyone is lying, and I'm like, that's ridiculous. Equal footing. Very smart. That's definitely. She played me. She played me well.
She put the name on the house and the
Yeah, yeah. But like the idea is that everyone is lying. You're like, why? Why is everyone lying? I don't like. I honestly don't understand. That's why, like, when people say heinous shit, I'm like, ooh. Like, I immediately am just like, what kind of person does that, right?
I
Like, I
just
remember. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
go on.
No, I remember a comedian who was I think she was English, she might have been Australian, I don't know, some weird accent. She was in Toronto and she was like, yeah, once I called an Uber and I let him fuck me in the ass. And I'm like, what? I'm like, that there's I'm very confused. And she was like, oh, I was just living my best life. And I'm like, no, 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 no. Because I'll tell you, that Uber driver is never leaving that area. And he's like, just for the chance that there are other broads in this area that just like to call an Uber and let him bang you in the butthole.
I think
That's insane.
I think that the Uber driver was living his best life. I don't know.
100%.
However, why did we? Why was this information necessary?
Well, no, I'm just saying, like, someone says that and you're going like, no one's going to look at you the same after you say something like that. You're like, why do people not know? Like, I don't know if she was being if she was just trying to tell a funny story or like maybe it really happened. It seemed like it really happened, but at the same time, it's like, keep that private. I don't know that like that people, like it's that idea of like the idea of people using flourishing words to distract you from their lack of substance.
Well,
Which I know both of us as comedians, that's kind of ridiculous me saying it, but
no, but like, well, not in. Yeah, but like, I'm on stage, I'm gonna flourish. Like it's a different context. I'm supposed to be deceptive and
yeah,
well, not even, but like it's fine. I've now dipped my toe into poetry. Um,
yeah,
and like, yeah, there's deception and eloquence and fucking pretension and just
yeah,
like I don't know, it's like it's crafting the English language for beauty and substance and not direct communication.
yeah,
Whereas I used to work with a coach. I coached CrossFit for many years, and fitness and all that stuff. And I'm super qualified. So if you have a personal opinion on CrossFit, you can suck it. I don't care. I'll destroy you and everything, analytically or physically. And there we go.
yeah.
Bring
There you
on
go.
the hate. I don't give a shit. So no, but like he would talk, like he would learn, and like there was so a coach I worked with, and there was like a well-respected physiotherapist guy, or that taught a lot of physio. Like he did the physio stuff, the movement,
Yeah,
the recovery shit for CrossFit. And he would speak so above people with like the words he would use, and
yeah,
almost like my buddy, even like he was in kinesiology, so and he would be like, I understand what he's saying, but he would almost create words that were more complicated just to do that. And I had another coach that I worked with, and he would always use like these big fucking words, and like to the point that I, as a coach, did not understand what the fuck he's talking about.
yeah,
And I am the antithesis of that, despite now doing it purposefully. But like when I'm actually trying to communicate, and even then, I can tell you, like it's funny. Well, whatever. I'll get into the poetry in a minute. But and it's like, dude, like I never talked to him because I knew it was just like insecurity. Like it was just
yeah,
insecure. Like you have to talk about people to try and bring yourself up to that level or outwit them or some shit. And like no, like even there's two like Steve Jobs, Elon Musk. They both will talk to you like a 5-year-old, because if a 5-year-old can understand, not like respect of a 5-year-old, but like
No.
the words.
Yeah.
Like you don't need to use highfalutin words.
Yeah.
You don't need to use complicated shit to get your point across. And the less you use, the more likely they are to understand. Like the point of communication is for the other person to understand. It's not for you to feel better about your fucking self or like, you know, no to prove that you're the boss. Like I've run into so much of that shit and we've talked about it before. I'm the boss. Okay, good luck with that. What should I tell the people when they come for guidance from me? Because they don't recognize you as anything but a problem and a nuisance and fucking whirlwind of chaos. Whereas if you just, and which is the opposite of stoicism, which is what we're trying to like fucking, no, you have to be the foundation for the company, the information, the classroom, the fucking anything.
Yeah.
And if you're not that person, then you're probably attending the class and that's fine. But like otherwise, if you're the smartest person at the table, you're at the wrong table. So yeah.
100%. And that's one of those things where people will use big words and I'll go, I don't know what that means. Can you explain it to me? And they get pissed because I'm guilty of this too, where I'll use a word that sounds right, may not be. But and you're like, people are like, yeah, that's the right word. And I'm like, I don't think it is. I think it might be. Like it's you get what I'm trying to say, but I'll do that just to be like, I'm trying to incorporate that. Like I do that specifically because I'm trying to incorporate a new word into my vocabulary because it's a useful word. There's a lot of words like that, but like if you're trying to use it to make other people feel clueless, like I remember talking to a doctor and he said a bunch of stuff and I'm like, you mean my lower back? He's like, yeah, your lower back. And I'm like, why don't you just say that so I understand what you're talking about? Because I have no idea. You're talking Japanese to me. I don't, you know.
It was weird because the guy was Chinese.
Well, he was Korean, but still. Yeah.
That's
we don't like that at all.
It's fucking
yeah. So, but that's the thing is like if you use your language to try and make somebody else feel lesser, then you have lost the entire point of communication. Right?
Yeah. But like communication is all manipulation is through communication. So it's just like I'm like, you can either be understood or you're just trying to control, or you're trying to control the perspective of the people, their perspective of you. And it's funny, I was on set and there was this guy walking around with the book Sapien, which is on like the book of reeds. But like he was like, if you don't know where the humans came from, you can you don't know enough, or they're destined to make the same mistake. I'm like, no, this first it's false. The more you pay attention to the same thing, you will destined to repeat the past. Second of all, you're walking around with it and your head up in the air, and there's other comments of like, it's something like, oh, my parents, because he's from abroad, and he's like, my parents would they just think I'm here going to be a tech, very successful tech, whatever, fucking, you know, all the computer bullshit. And he's doesn't know I'm on movies, and it's like, what if your family is just watching one? Oh, my family wouldn't watch anything in English. And it's like, and I'm just like, horse shit. I'm like, you're just a fucking, you're so full of yourself. And it like hurts. It's funny because he called me out on like, because he said something about like job interviews, and I brought up the whole like, oh, my great, like the weak, it's like, oh, they always ask you a weakness and you have to like hide it as a strength. And then I did the whole stupid, you know, honesty. It's just like, I don't think that's a weakness. And I say, well, I don't give a fuck what you think. And it's just, he's like, yeah, which is gold, man. It's fucking gold.
Solid gold.
Yeah. And he's like, oh, well, everybody, that's been on everything since blah, 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 blah. And it's like, eat shit. And I actually said that. I'm like, eat shit. It's funny. And it always will be funny. And it was funny then. And I didn't say that, hey, here's my original thought that you can fucking, no, I said, oh, it just brings me back to that. And I just said, it's like, you are so far, your head is so far up your ass that you believe your own smell. Like, I'm just like, who are you trying to kid, man? You're just walking around like you're playing a part of a pretentious fuck.
Yeah.
It's like you think you're someone like who I don't like. I'm sure he's fooling somebody, but he's sure as fuck not fooling me. And these
Well,
people, and then
he's
I
fooling
look like
himself.
the asshole because I'm just like, no, look at him. He is the asshole.
Yeah. No, that's true. Worse is when people make it worse. Oh, 100%. Or will actively pronounce it wrong and be like, no, that's how it's pronounced. You're like, no, it's not. That's not English. What is this? I kind of feel bad for genius who can't communicate with others because barely anyone cares. So I have an interesting thing with this. So I know a couple guys that are in Mensa, and this is the thing is they both of them are will talk very not lowbrow, but will just be like, just fucking with you, but every once in a while they say something and I'm like, and I'll pick up on it and go, what was that? They're like, nothing. And I'm like, I caught you, you son of a bitch. Because this is the thing is, if you are a higher intellectual person, you need to learn how to communicate with children. Like that's basically, and that's my philosophy in every role or job or career, whatever you want to say, is if you can't explain it to a 5-year-old, you don't know what you're doing. It's that simple, right? And that's the thing is like that's why the understanding, like people who are like, oh, I have ADHD, I'm shy in front of public and stuff like that. Great, that's the first thing you should be taking care of right out of the gate, right? Because children aren't that shy, right? They become shy because of circumstances. So getting them to overcome that at an early age, like for me, I was talking in front of 1,000 people when I was 12 years old. Makes a huge difference, right? And then you can actually realistically work on other things because I've been embarrassed and forgot my place. Like, look, I went to Cleveland and did 15 minutes, and I forgot half of my material because I got too high.
Yeah. Maybe
Now,
a buttload of drugs before your headlining spot is not a good idea, but lessons learned, right?
I mean, I'll probably do it again. Let's be honest. But
Well, definitely, because we've never met a bad decision we didn't like.
that's also true. So it's one of those things where, like, was I funny still? Yeah. Did I still make people laugh? Absolutely. And then also too, the person who gave me drugs was dressed up in a Care Bear outfit. And I was like, you guys can see the Care Bear, right? Like he's not just in my mind. And they're like, yeah, no, we can see him. I'm like, so that's a real person. Can you believe that? Let's fuck it up. And they start laughing. I'm like, that's funny shit, right? So I'm like, I know how to be funny, even if I'm high off my tits. But regardless of that, is that I still know how to break things down to make people understand. And that's that whole key component of communication. And that's where I'm like, people who will use big words and try and make things more complex are not they're not out there to help you. They are there trying to stonewall you from progress. And I think that's the real kind of
And
message.
like that's the problem you get like with some of these teachers that are like, especially in universities and shit, they like are just so full of themselves and just teach their material, like their thoughts. So like Jordan Peterson, like I've heard he is pretentious, but like
Sure.
we understand him, of course we do, and I love him mostly. So yeah, like, but it's funny how even he appreciates intelligence that has not been coaxed by learning establishments, because it's funny that like people are like, oh, these you go to college and you start to think at a different level, and I'm just like, I didn't need to go to college for that, but like I recognize that sure as fuck there's some that do, and
Yep.
a lot that do and don't achieve, and yeah, like independent thought.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, but I've always been, and it's just like, yeah, I can talk above you, but what the fuck good is that? Like it just,
Yeah.
and I don't even appreciate it. I talk below my, like, I guess I am one of your Mensa friends, except I'm smart enough not to spend like $3,000 to get $3,000 a year to be a part of a club that says I'm smart. But so I skipped the dues. But like I'll talk. I need to start talking more above where I do, because I just use horrible language all the time, just because I don't care, but maybe I should.
Yeah.
And my superpower is an unwavering lack of fucks for how people feel about me, but at the same time, I need them. You know, you need people, so like you need them to respect you, and sometimes that's just easier by cleaning shit up a bit. But yeah.
True. That's true. And that's, but I don't think that that is a flaw. I think that's a point of personal growth, right? Like over time, you learn because let's be honest, is the language you use will dictate the crowd you attract,
Yeah.
right?
Well, yeah.
And that's the thing is like when I remember going to a show and there were a bunch of comedians, like I went just to check it out. It was the amateur Wednesday show at Absolute Comedy. And they
You hate
uh
yourself. Anyways, go on.
no, I was still new to comedy, so I was like, oh, let me go check it out. And all of them were dropping like solid material and we're not getting laughs. And essentially everyone just had to end up at sex humor. And I'm like, that's low hanging fruit. It's not it is funny, but I'm like, it's not creative. It's not, it's not, it doesn't require more effort. It's just, and then the people start laughing. And I'm like, all right, that's a crowd, right? Like sometimes people are like that. But being on stage, they tried, saw it wasn't going anywhere, changed directions, and worked with the crowd. The headliner who came up, who killed, was immediately talking about fucking. And you're like, yeah. And he won over the crowd immediately, and he was hilarious. That's how that works, right?
That's because he was paying attention.
But that's why you're going, listen, sometimes that's what people want. Okay. But that's the whole idea is that then you're, especially in comedy, you are hostage of the crowd, right? Yeah. You don't have like they're your hostage, but you are theirs as well.
Yeah.
Because there's nothing worse than going up, dropping good material, and everyone go, I don't get it. And you're like, right?
Like, yeah, okay. So comedy, let's talk about some of my shit. Like it's funny, I'll tell jokes, and some people just like, the problem is you'll talk to people might take forever to learn this, but sometimes as soon as you say something that like somebody disagrees with, their head shuts off and they don't listen to a goddamn word. And this could be mid-sentence.
Yep.
So I'm like, so I've been I've been well acquainted with HR in the past. And a lot of it's like, oh, you said this. I'm like, did you get to the end of the sentence? Because and then I worked in a place where people didn't even speak fucking English. So it was like, I'm like, yeah. Guess what? There was some lost in translation because people, they're complaining because they only heard one part and don't even understand the second part. But I will have jokes. See, I'll have jokes of like Game of Thrones, right? Like I had a lot of jokes, and it's just like, but all my jokes have enough explanation in them that you don't have to have watched the show. And I'm banking on you have like just the most minute idea of like this is like a medieval-y type of show.
Yeah. Dragons, medieval.
Yeah. Like
fighting.
Dude, beards, long hair. Like, right? And like, but beyond that, and then because a lot of people are like, oh, I never even watched Game of Thrones. I'm like, well, did you listen to the rest of the joke? Because you would have gotten it anyways, because it's all explained in there. And so I like to keep it and like other shit language. Like I got in troubles. Anyways, no, I was in because it was just like with a woman I was talking to, and so we were on set, and something was happening, and we were supposed to do something, whatever, and then something exploded, which was supposed to happen, but it didn't happen. I was like, well, we were sitting there, and like all day, I expected, and I said the bitch to sing, and then there would be the explosion. But instead, I just like looked, and I got hit by fucking candy glass. And I'm just like, holy, that's surprising. And I was like, but then the person I was with was like, not a Pret fan that I said I thought the bitch would sing. Okay, but it wasn't. It was more for emphasis on the words, just to be like more entertaining. It wasn't like I don't know this person.
Yeah.
I don't think she's actually a bitch. it was just there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like it
Yeah.
wasn't. I'm like, maybe that's. And then whatever. I still went out with her. So I was just like, I was like, well, maybe that's behavior worth correcting, and then that solved it because I don't care. And also, I'm not a big fan of like apologies. Yes, once in a while, especially I'm a man, so I don't get them. So I don't expect them. But I'm a strong believer that the best apologies change behavior, and I
Yes.
like to practice that. I'm like, don't say thanks. Like I don't give a fuck. Just stop doing it. It's just like, yeah, like I had a coach. I was hitting a bag against the wall, but the neighbor fucking annoys at the gym, and then they're like, "Oh, move it away from the wall." And they annoy, and so I moved it, but I didn't say anything. He's like, and then he was like, "Did you move it or whatever?" I was like, his wife was like, "Yeah, he moved it." It was just like, I don't need to respond. I responded by doing the thing you needed, and then
Yeah.
it was done. I don't need to like converse about everything either. That's the problem. We start to talk too much about shit. Like I
Yes.
know that's what we're doing, but it's just like therapy. First off, that was made not for men, and like and just talking about shit endlessly. Like you have to talk about it for a point, and then move the fuck on. But like there's
That's a growing thing where they're like that
yeah,
causes more trauma when you just talk about things
endless,
circularly. Like you
yeah,
have to talk about it to figure it out and then walk away from it. Like that's
yeah,
the you talk about it only enough to understand what's happening. But if you keep regurgitating the same thing, you're re-traumatizing, you're enforcing the trauma instead of the understanding and progress. Right?
definitely. Like I was on okay, I was on set. It's always on set. You know why it's on set? Because it's the only time I interact with other people. Anyways, okay, so I was working and we were at lunch, which could have been
Right.
at fucking 7 o'clock at night. Anyways, but it was lunch, and I was talking to a woman because I just looked at my phone and I'm like, oh, that's a lot. And then she was like, "What's going on?" And I was just like, "Well," I'm like, "Well, my ex has just announced her engagement," and she's like, "Yeah, how is that?" And it's like, "Oh, well." I'm like, I don't know how to feel about it right now, but I will take time, process it, and then I'll come to a conclusion, and then I'll be okay with it. And she's like, "Wow, that's a lot. Like that's pretty progressive, I guess, or something to that effect." And I'm just like, yeah, like I don't know how to feel about it right now. I will think about that, figure it out, and then I'll come
Yeah.
to a conclusion, and then I'll move on, and I'll be happy because I knew that it wasn't like I think about it. It's just like, oh, that's weird and sudden, and it's also like, well, we were never getting back together, so it's really not a thing. Like I didn't want that anyways. So like that opportunity I could have had, and I passed,
Yeah.
and then. So it was just like, and it's like it's weird the moving on stage. Plus, I'm still close with this person. We're still friends, and
Right.
it was just caught by surprise because then a lot of the time you think that you're like more important than you are in other people's lives, and but it's just like, what was she supposed to reach out to me personally? Like that's weird too, and also more difficult. This is probably the easiest for everybody. It was just
Yeah.
weird that like being at work was probably not my. But even then, it's just like no, it's good. I was distracted, and so
It's one of those things where uh you get blindsided, right? And then you're kind of just like, but that's the thing, is that's the right way to think. Be like, you know what, I don't know how I feel about it, so instead of immediately reacting with something, I can take it away. And that goes to the idea of
stoicism.
well, being patient.
Yeah,
And like people are too hung up on instant gratification of communication, where it's like, I message you, you have to message me back immediately. Like I'm really bad for that, in that like if somebody messages me, I try and respond immediately. If I
yeah.
don't, like I will forget, right?
Well, that's why you've trained yourself to do it immediately. But
But
yeah,
also like it irks me if it's there and I'm not respond, like if I don't respond to it, like it bothers the shit out of me too, where I'm just like, why? Right? Because I'll leave the notification on, like I'll grab Victoria's phone and it has like 1,000 things open, and I'm like, I'm like, it just blows my mind, right? Even when I walk up to her and because she works from home some of the time, so I'll walk up to her and I'll see her computer and there's just like 50 tabs open. I'm like, ah! And she's like, that's how I work. And I'm like, I couldn't do that. Like, I've had like 7 tabs, like, but all have a purpose and
Everything
all are
gets slow then, like I don't just for
no.
your sake.
Well, but like it's just I'm just like I can't do that. Like there's just too much activity. Like I can multitask to a degree. Like I did try and learn that skill as best I could when I was younger. And I'm like, I can keep order of things in my mind, but can only do one thing at a time. Because like and I've said this on stage where I'm like, if you give man one job, he'll do that job. He may become the best in the world at that job. If you give him 2 jobs, you're going to have 2 crappy jobs done. If you give him 3 jobs, you will have 3 fuck ups. If you give him 4, he's going to lose his mind. And that's just just how that is. I'm like, men are, you give them one job, you give them a series of duties, and they'll just go, okay, that's a list. Boom, 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 boom. One thing at a time, and you just progressively go through it. And that's the easiest way to, yeah.
But it's not man, it's everybody. Like people think, like I know, like Victoria probably thinks whatever. Oh, I'm a great multitasker. Everybody thinks they're a great multitasker, but the thing is, that we're not. It always takes a cost. So if you did one job, you would do it better than trying to do 6 shit at the same time. Nobody's a good multitasker. Like it's been proven in science. It's just like we don't.
There's a certain amount of
ignore science nowadays. Like
well, also true.
Like with a lot of things.
Buddy, I'm a borderline mouth breather. I'm not great multitasker. Instruction notes are a godsend. But that's the thing is like I will give people instruction to the letter, like exactly what they have to do, step by step by step. Like I will break it down, be like, okay, you're gonna want to do this. Then this is the next step. You're going to this, and I'll screenshot and show you and do stuff. And people are like, oh, this is so comprehensive. I'm like, you can't screw it up. Now, I'm like, the only way you can screw it up is if you skip steps. And if you skip steps, you're an idiot. It's that simple, right? But that's like, and I have notoriously skipped sets and screwed things up. That's why I'm like, yeah.
I watched you make Lego.
Also true.
No,
that is factual.
No, like I'll tell them not only like how to do it, but like how I do it more efficiently. Like it's like,
oh yeah.
And like the insane thing is, I would get in shit for work, and like they would be like, Kyle's just sitting there. I'm like, because I know how to do my fucking work. And then and they're like, oh, why isn't he doing more? Because I don't see the need to finish my job and do yours. Like I know how to do my job so that I have free time, because I'm like, it's called my work has finished. I'm sorry that you've never achieved that.
Yeah.
Because I've had this comment. I'm like, you know what finished work is, right? Like it's done. And then you have time to do other things. So sometimes I'd sit because I'm in between shit or whatever. And I'm just like, you know why you're not done is because you suck. Like,
well, that was
motivational. But
who was it? Larry. I was
not there to lead. Anyways.
No, do you remember Larry when we were at Night of Lights, and he was hanging up lights on this wall, and like let's put it this way. He was nonstop doing something, but it was the slowest process. And look, I used to be 500 pounds. I didn't do anything fast. And I was like, bro, this guy's killing me. I couldn't even watch him do it because I was like, I can't. You're just going too slow. Right.
No,
but but that's the thing is like the reward for finishing your work fast is more work. And I'm like, I respect what he's doing, but at the same time, why? Why just do it faster? You know,
but
like
at that situation, it was
I got it.
Talk about it uniquely, but it's just like if he actually finished it, it would probably take him longer to find out the new job. Then, like, so he'd really just have free time. And Larry was just on his phone, fucking every second, anyways. But
also true. But like that idea of knowing which like it bothers the shit out of me when people are like, oh, you did a great job here, do everyone else's work. I'm like, why would I do everyone else's work? You're not giving me their pay. That doesn't make any sense. Let me just do my job and be done with it, right? And that's I have a huge problem with that where I'm like, I like the idea of here, you have to do these 3 things today. Okay, once they're done, I'm done. No problem. That's why I'm always like, I always consider the idea of like being a garbage man where I'm like, yeah, you just run your route. I'm like, I'd run my route at 7 o'clock in the morning. No problem. Like
Yeah.
happily, be done by 11. Good. No problem. Off I go.
Yeah, like what was I gonna say? The like every time I have stuff, it's just like if I had more stuff, I would just get tired. But I'll do stuff. Like my goal is to get shit done. Like I don't like doing stuff, so I always try to do it as fast. And like my dad was like telling me this. He's like, it might take you a few 8-hour days or like 4 8-hour days to do this lawn. I'm like, 4 8-hour days? Are you fucking kidding me? I'm like, dude, you don't want to pay me more, but I want you to, like, the reason I want you to pay me more than you do is because I will do it in a third of the fucking time any other idiot you get will do it. So just pay me to the point that I just make up my hours anyways. It's my dad, but so like whatever. I'm just like, dude, I have one time, okay, I did something and I tacked on, I think it was 3 hours extra.
Right.
Than I actually took.
Right.
And his response was, wow, you did that fast. Yeah. I'm just like, well, shit, I got to add more time.
Do you know how many times? So I remember I was at my dad's shop and he was like, I need you to take these rollers to this place for delivery. I'm like, okay. So I go, I just load up the truck. I go, come back, and I'm walking back into the office. He's like, I told you to go. And I'm like, yeah. Are you going to go? I'm like, I'm back. And he's like, what? I'm like, I'm back. I already took it. Here's the slip. And he's like, oh, okay. And he didn't know how to deal with me at that point because I was like, because the problem was up until that point, my brother who passed away, he would do deliveries and he was notorious for taking like ridiculously long times to do things. And that's because he would go see his girlfriend, he would go just run errands, and you're like, bro, you're on the clock. What are you doing? Like, just do your job. And like, granted, you and I have an advantage where we can do things that normal people can't do, right? Like, we don't necessarily need a ladder. We don't, like, it's like, oh, is that steel? Snap. It's fine. It's not that, all right. So it's like, it's just wood. Just kick it. It's fine. It'll break. But that's the thing is, you're like, don't punish me for being better. And that's
the thing. I need to be rewarded for my. If it's like at work, they'd be like, "Oh, can you reach that because you're tall?" And I was like, "Can you do something better because you're short?" Like, I don't like, you know what I mean? I'm like, every time, I'm like, "How about I get a bonus for every job I do more efficiently because I'm tall?" Because because I should be paid more than the idiot that can't do it. Or every time I use me as a ladder, I get a ladder fee.
Well, that's the hilarious thing that I find is that we are currently in an environment, and I've been penalized for this many times, is the idea of I don't know how to look busy.
No,
yeah. So, and that's the thing is like people who look busy and do nothing are rewarded. People who don't look busy yet have all their shit done efficiently are punished. And I'm like, that is completely backwards for me. And that's really what I think the message is of those two pieces is that like, yeah, there's a lot of razzmatazz and just fancy words. None of those have any value, right? And that's I think what we have to get back to is the idea where there's like you have your core principles, your core responsibilities. Think about those first. Everything else, it's extra. You're not, when you try and make things fancy just so that they look fancy,
Speaking of that, no, like I had this I don't know. He wasn't even an assistant manager. He was like a key holder manager, whatever.
Yeah.
But he was like a young guy, and he always wore a suit and tie and all that. Like not a suit, but like a shirt and tie, and it was like Pier 1 Imports. All right, so it's a like not necessary, but like it's not outlandishly stupid.
Yeah.
But he was like, then he took over doing the truck. All right. And so that was, but like that's what me and other people did. All right, but there was always like a manager, but like he would, so he comes in like from another store, and like he's just like kissed ass forever. Like this is how he got his place in life, and then he starts trying to like guide us. I'm like, dude, how about you sit back and watch the glory happen? You know, because
Yeah.
we're the crew, we are the people. Like the person, the manager who handed this off to you, she hadn't never needed to be there. Like,
Yeah.
because she was just out, and then this idiot would like, and then even on the floor, like he would be like, there was a woman. Like there was a woman in her 50s, 60s, like 55 and older, and then there was a woman in her 20s, and then he had the woman in her 60s, 50s, like, oh, can you go stock the shelves? And the other, and then the young one doing the fucking customer service. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? I'm like, how about you switch that up? Because the other, first off, she's been doing customer service forever. And also, maybe her body isn't the best for all the, like, she can stock shelves, but it's like, it's really not what she should be doing. And the other chick is newer and she could definitely do the labor and also is not as good with the customers. So how about we like put people with their strengths, and also as a manager, you should have like not only like recognized that, but you should have like talk to the people before you start ordering them places. Before, like, you don't know what they're best at. Figure out that first.
Yeah. Like, and that's the hilarious part is like, as someone's manager, you should be like, okay, what are you good at? This. Okay, so what do you normally do? This. Okay, what do you want to do? And then say, oh, well, I'd like to expand to this. Okay, so you know what? You're gonna do what you normally do, but tomorrow we're gonna give that a try. Like,
Yeah.
that's how you help people grow.
And
Common
it's like,
sense,
if they are
bro. Common
no,
sense. That's
common sense is
no,
wrong.
no, not.
But
Yeah.
it's no, but like it's like if they like to do it, then they're probably better at it than most. You know what I mean? Like it's just like it, or and like so I like it's funny because my current job, which kind of doesn't exist, and you know the management issue I have, and
Yeah.
you had, but she actually it won't. She'll now like ask me if I want to do the task because it's just like I kind of just like if I don't want to do it or I think it's stupid, I will sign out and go home. Like that's where I'm at this point, and it's just like no, I've told her why for certain reasons. It's just like I'm a big dude, so there's certain things like little finicky shit with my hands is probably not a great successful thing, and other
Yep.
things are just painful because of my size. Like I can only do certain things.
Yep.
So it's just I'm like use me to the advantage because the job I initially did and I did fantastic, and part of it was because I was a giant, also because I'm know how to be resourceful and use resources, and I got highly accredited and super anyway, they love me for it.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just like it's not that hard. It's funny if you went into a place as a manager and just like asked everybody what they wanted and what they like doing, and then if they have like certain goals to achieve, it's just like so if they're really good at something like that and don't ever want to do anything different, like you have to only gauge it on things that are like, you know, if it's the shittiest job that nobody wants to do, then you can't have the same person doing it all the
Sure.
time. But
Yeah.
like that's just sense like at that point. But yeah, like you switch it up or you keep it the same depending on what the needs are and the competencies are and all that shit.
Yeah.
And it's just like this should be how it is. And it's just like, but like all of this shit, I'm like, oh, okay, well, I've done retail for over 20 years, 30 years. Well, not 30 years, over 20. And but like I would have told you this shit at 18.
Yeah.
Like I do have years of experience, but I'm intelligent enough to like, I'm like, no, this is the shit. This is management, and this is the fact that there are managers out there that don't fucking understand this. And
No.
because all they've done, they haven't done anything. They just kissed ass their way up. Or like maybe they were good, but they just because you're good at a job doesn't make you a good boss at that job either. So
No. That is painfully accurate.
yeah,
Because
like,
in actuality, people who are good at the job are probably the worst people to manage because their expectations are ridiculous.
yeah.
Right? You need someone who is competent at the job to be the manager because then they have a mediocre expectation, but they have an understanding of what people are doing. But
See, that's part of, well, that was part of the problem with our past employment too. But like being the best at the job, that it's just like, it's funny. It's just like, Sidney Crosby might be the worst coach. You know what I mean? Just because he's a fantastic player. Hell, Wayne Gretzky got fired as a coach.
Yeah, he'd be a horrible coach.
I don't know, like I didn't actually pay attention, but it's funny because when they, it's so funny because I had all these people who like, I'm like, dude, the Leafs should have kept Paul Maurice, and they're like, no, he was a terrible coach, blah blah blah, all this coach blah. And I was like, now he's like a great coach somewhere else. I was like, no, he was a great coach. They're like, oh, I've seen his practices. I'm like, first off, who the fuck are you? What the fuck do you know? You don't know shit. You're not an. I'm like, he was trying to get, but he was like new still, so there was time. And also, you're coming into a situation with all these players that he had no, like you go a sports team, you can't just start firing people either. Like they're worth millions. So like so you have to get people to work with you and stuff. So it's just, I'm like, a good coach probably won't come in and make an impact that first year.
Well, so, it's hilarious that you would say that, because there's a clip of Bill Burr talking with Christina P on Your Mom's House, and she says something psychoanalytical. He goes, what the fuck what are you, some sort of therapist now? And she goes, I've been in therapy for 10 years. He goes, who cares? I've been watching football for 20. Doesn't mean I can do shit. And you're going, ta-da! You're like, that's it. You're like, you have to realize that you may have knowledge, but that does not make you an expert in any way, shape, or form. And that's why I think the core takeaway from these two verses today was basically is that, yeah, you got to look for how people communicate, because it tells you how they communicate, tells you more about them than what they're trying to communicate. Because most often is, if they can't help you understand or communicate well to you, it's obvious that they have no idea what they're doing, right?
Yeah.
And realistically, you could just use, I remember what was it, Catch Me If You Can, where he's like, do you concur? He's like, he's like, do you? He's like, yes, I do. Boom, you're in charge. And you're going, he had no idea what he was doing. Why? It's just that air of confidence and being able to say, okay, what do you think we should do? All right, you think so? Good, do it. Good. That's it. It's done. You're like, it's that simple. You don't have to make things complex to make people understand, right?
In fact, it's the antithesis. It's
yeah.
It's more likely to cause confusion than.
There's a Hemingway quote about that. Let me finish with that here. Hemingway.
Ernest or like Leroy?
Hemingway.
Leroy Hemingway of the Compton Hemingways.
Small words.
Small penis.
Quote. It was against what the hell's his name? Faulkner. Said, poor Faulkner, does he really think big emotions come from big words? He thinks I don't know the $10 words. I know them all right, but there are older and simpler and better words, and those are the ones I use. We'll end that on today. Thank you, everyone, for watching. It's greatly appreciated. In the meantime, please like, share, and subscribe, and we will be back next week, unless I am whisked away to some mythical journey again. But that's
what do you got going on?
So in Toronto, I do have a show on the 19th happening, which I'm going to be sharing in the next couple days, which is Multicultural Madness happening at SoCap on the Danforth.
Oh, so he actually got you on the...
Yeah.
Okay.
Which I'm like, why would you even? He's like, I need Greek comedians. I'm like, bro, I've already performed on your show impromptu. I walked in and you were like, hey, do you want to do 5 minutes? I'm like, okay, sure. So, but yeah, so I'm doing that show. I also have tomorrow Hammered and Cheese. Wednesday, I don't think I have anything. I might have something. I don't remember.
Okay.
You got something happening Wednesday?
Oh, I don't. Okay.
Yeah.
This show is on at 7 on Monday. Today was 7:30.
My bad.
Whatever. For all you watchers and all you regulars. Half of our audience lives with you. I think we'll figure it out. So Dino and I are both online YouTube show April 21st, the
Oh, yeah.
roast of Cole Clayton.
Yeah, that should be interesting.
And so we will get roasted. He will also get roasted, and it will be horrible. This is every Monday. Also, tomorrow I will probably be performing at Bampot Cafe. I think it's called Bam. It's called Bampot. I don't know if the cafe thing is wrong, but it's in Toronto from 7 to 9. It's a poetry open mic. It'll be my second. I'm backed by popular demand. Well, like 3 people's demand. And then and then the following Wednesday, we will probably find a guest for Sketched Out on Wednesdays at 8:30. I think it's when. Fuck, I gotta write this shit down. At 8:30, and that's on. So we look at sketches and talk to the person who made them. And so far, it's been the hosts. And next time we should have a guest. And I think that's it. If you want to hire me for stuff, I need the money, so do it.
Thanks for watching, everybody. We'll see you guys later. Bye.